Hello and good morning and welcome to today's webinar. I'm going to be your host today. My name is James Ridsdale and I'm the Solutions Lead here at DataJar. DataJar are partners with two key vendors, and I want to talk a little bit about that today. So first of these partnerships is with Apple directly. We're a proud member of the Apple Consultants Network and we've worked with Apple for a number of years. The second of our partnerships that we work with is with Jamf Software. Jamf make industry-leading lifecycle management products for the Apple platform, and we are a Jamf integrator, Jamf Gold reseller, and a certified Jamf managed service provider. We are also an integrator pro, which means we are certified to deliver professional services on behalf of Jamf. Okay, back to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about managing Apple within the enterprise and the ingredients to a successful deployment. The outline for today is going to start with the following. So we're going to talk a little bit about procurement and why this is so important. Really, your journey does start with the procuring of devices, and there's a number of reasons why we push this so hard. The second is getting started with Apple Business Manager. I'll talk to you a little bit about how to enroll, and really this is your gateway to managing your Apple estate. We're going to touch on infrastructure, as this is often an area where it kind of gets neglected and people tend to focus more on the devices and the management platform, but don't really look at and evaluate their own infrastructure themselves. We're also going to touch on directory services, and I'll explain why this is important and how you can leverage directory services for a true zero-touch deployment workflow. We're going to speak more about mobile device management, clarify what it is and why indeed you need it. And lastly, we'll touch on resourcing, so how best to resource your deployment and your workflows. This is a bit more of an outline of how these things are laid out and why they are so important. So procurement, Apple Business Manager, management, infrastructure, and device. Then obviously you've got resourcing after this. Okay, so procurement. This is really the building blocks to your Apple deployment. We recommend you procure all Apple devices directly from Apple or from an authorized reseller. Please only purchase from Apple or an authorized reseller, as they're the only people that can register these Apple devices and place them into Apple Business Manager. This is really, really important, and I'll touch on a bit about why this is important later on. Only Apple or an authorized reseller can add volume credit to Apple Business Manager. So when we talk about volume credit, we talk about volume purchasing. So this is a procurement of apps and content. You can provide a purchase order to your reseller or Apple directly, and they can give you credit so you can procure your apps without need of a credit card. And lastly, iOS devices or tvOS devices have the option to be manually enrolled into Apple Business Manager via Apple Configurator 2, and there are plenty of workflows and Apple's knowledge base. Okay, Apple Business Manager, what is it? So it was launched in 2018, in June. It's the second iteration of Apple's deployment program. So originally there would have been a deploy.apple.com, that's the legacy kind of V1 instance, and you'd be redirected out from there to Apple's volume purchasing program. However, in 2018, they decided to aggregate both of these services into one single portal, which is fantastic. To enroll your organization to Apple Business Manager, you're going to need various legal information about your organization, such as a registered address, VAT status, and a Dun & Bradstreet number, also referred to a DUNS number. If you don't have this information, I would strongly recommend speaking to someone senior at your organization or someone in finance. You may have a legacy deploy.apple.com URL account, which is Apple's first iteration of their deployment programs, and you can upgrade this easily by going to HT208817 and following the guidelines there. Okay, back to Apple Business Manager. So Apple Business Manager really is your central portal to manage devices, content, and roles. When we look at devices, we can look to see about automatically enrolling them into your MDM platform. Again, that starts with procurement. They get assigned to your Apple Business Manager account, and then from there, you can direct them out to your MDM server. Combined with an MDM and Apple Business Manager, You can streamline the setup for your users. You can suppress certain dialogues, certain information at the setup process, thus speeding it up. You can manage additional settings also if a device has come through Apple Business Manager, such as supervision. And this is critical when you're dealing with your enterprise deployment. You can create multiple MDM servers in your console, and you can assign devices based on type to different MDMs. You may prefer Intune for your iOS devices, and you may prefer Jamf for your core macOS devices. This can be fully automated behind the scenes. Here's a quick screenshot of what that looks like. So you can see you can add in your MDM servers. You essentially download the public key from them and you upload it to Business Manager and link the two, and you can set them as your preferred type. Next, we want to talk about content. So with the content in Apple Business Manager, you can buy apps in bulk, both books as well, and you can distribute those to your devices when combined with a mobile device management server. You can assign and revoke applications quite easily from your console, and you can have multiple VPP tokens, so a purchasing token. So this is new in Business Manager, so it enables you to have a procurement per location. So you could have one organization as a top level and then multiple branch locations within your organization, each having their own purchasing and procurement process. Here's a screenshot of where it looks like to buy your applications. In this example, you can see we have Keynote, and you could buy 100 copies of that if you wanted to, and you can then assign it to whichever location you needed to. You could then maybe transfer some of those licenses from one location to another later on. Lastly, roles. You can create roles to help manage your locations, devices, and content. You may decide that you want a device manager account for enrollment and MDM, and someone who can actually manage those devices but can't do anything else. Likewise, for a content manager account who can manage your apps and books. People manager account for just managing staff and setting up accounts. Here's an example again, where you can create various sign-ins. The user will be prompted to go through a two-factor authentication process. They will be issued with a managed Apple ID, and you can manage it all from this central console. Apple Business Manager to date is available in 64 different countries. I would strongly advise that whenever you're planning your deployment, you may be part of an organization with multiple office locations globally, is to seek out and make sure that Apple Business Manager is available in those geographic areas. If it's not, you need to plan your deployment carefully, as this could hinder your deployment process, such as if a device has not gone through the Apple Device Manager enrollment, it won't be supervised, and thus will cause you more headaches further down the line. As mentioned at the beginning, we're going to talk about infrastructure. So whilst this is sometimes ignored, this is vital to make sure you have a successful deployment. The three parts that we break down for infrastructure is connectivity, content caching, and Apple's push notification services. When deciding on where to deploy your devices, make sure, first and foremost, you're running an enterprise class wireless infrastructure. This is a full managed network environment. Consider your frequencies. If you're using 802.11b, G, or N, which operates on 2.4 gigahertz, this can often suffer interference and is suited to closed office environments. When we talk about interference, you could be talking about things like microwave ovens, etc. So this could cause issues. Again, it's an environmental thing. And when we talk about closed office environments, we think about an office where there's lots of walls and partitions. If you're in a more open plan office, consider 802.11an or AC. This operates at 5 gigahertz. There is less interference and the channels aren't as busy. And this is suited to more open plan office environments. However, if you've got a lot of glass partitions across your office environment, this can cause refraction. I would strongly advise, if you're planning your deployment, to have at least a paper survey done using a product called Ekahau, or consult a network architect for your network implementation. Consider using multiple SSIDs, such as device enrollment, guest, or corporate. These can route out to different VLANs in your environment. Avoid using hidden SSIDs or closed networks. There is actually no security benefit here at all, and this can cause delays with network association and actually can cause additional power drain on your mobile devices. So when we say mobile devices, this includes MacBooks, iPhones, iPads, etc. So it's really, really important that your network environment is actually very efficient to cause additional power drain in these devices. Okay, connectivity. This is a very, very important note. So please ensure you permit TCP 443 to your cloud-hosted MDM vendor, i.e. Datajar.mobi or Jamf Cloud, from your environment. Additional domains may also be required to be permitted. These are additional content delivery networks that Apple can use. Please permit these on TCP port 80 and 443 retrospectively. These include AKDNS, Akamai, Akamai Edge, Akamai Technologies, EdgeKey, and Footprint.net. Please also avoid any SSL inspection, and this will prevent commands from reaching your device. Content caching. Content caching helps reduce network bandwidth for iOS and macOS devices. It also includes tethered caching services, which shares your Ethernet internet connection from a Mac to a connected iOS device. This is particularly handy if you're deploying a batch load of iOS devices, and you can cache the content locally on that device when deploying them. Content caching works with DEP and VPP and caches software types such as software or security updates, firmware updates, applications, and iCloud content. I would strongly recommend using SSD space storage for content caching, as this has a high ops rate. Please use content caching devices and connect them to an Ethernet network for best performance. It's important not to proxy any client request to a content cache, as this will hinder the connectivity. Also, advanced options can be specified to a content cache, such as using a port. This can be done via asset cache util and is often considered the best practice. And lastly, on the connectivity and infrastructure point, the whole service relies on Apple's push notification service. This is used for the device enrollment program, which is shortened as DEP, volume purchase program, which is VPP. Please ensure you permit TCP 5223 outbound from your network to star.apple.com. It uses 443 as a fallback, but once again, avoid any SSL inspection or proxies, as this will prevent APN commands from reaching your device and will cause issues during your deployment. Okay, moving on to directory services. Directory services are recommended, and you often use them for traditional services such as authenticating to a device, but they could be used for authenticating to a Wi-Fi network or mail services. Integrating a directory service into a mobile device management platform can aid a shared or a one-to-one device configuration, which furthermore pushes zero-touch config. Integrate your MDM into a directory service for inventory and application assignments also. You can pre-configure MDM payloads utilizing the directory service for a personalized device configuration. As such, you could automatically deploy an Office 365 profile to a device correctly configured for that particular user, so all that happens is they're prompted for their password. Okay, mobile device management. Why do you need it and what is it? Okay, it's broken down to the first, these top level areas. So we talk about DEP, VPP, restrictions, commands, and queries. We covered DEP and VPP earlier, so we're going to focus mainly on restrictions, commands, and queries. With device restrictions, you can restrict or access features on the device directly. This could be something like the Mac App Store. You get a deep control of the device and user experience. You may choose to deploy dock icons or a user desktop. Additionally, with supervision, you have a deeper control of that OS and that environment because the device is actually supervised. And this is done by enrolling the device through the Apple Device Enrollment Program. You can control iCloud and additional services. You can control Safari, AirPrint, and Siri. You may have data loss prevention policies in place, in which case enabling iCloud might be, or disabling iCloud might be something for your organization. You can configure security and privacy settings, such as screensaver timeouts also. You can manage lost, stolen, or out of policy devices using commands. You can remove MDM or specific configuration profiles as required. You can remotely wipe a macOS device, an iPad, or an iPhone right from the central console. You can enforce a device lock, and you can also enforce password management policies, such as complexity. You can query a device and monitor its compliance utilizing MDM, and you can ensure that users have the appropriate apps installed via an inventory. You can query device details, query network information, and also find out what applications are installed. So, mobile device management. So, is it the answer to absolutely everything? Well, with iOS and tvOS, yes, it's the only way to manage those devices. However, when we're dealing with macOS also, we need to look at device management more holistically. So why is device management important, and why is it different to mobile device management? Well, device management actually uses varying levels of technologies and also uses additional components like a binary maybe to be installed, such as Jamf. This is where DataJar come in. So DataJar have partnered with Jamf Pro and have done for many, many years. We've worked deep with Jamf and we've worked deep with our own internal teams, and we believe we've created the best of breed for all solutions. This is called DataJar.mobi, your one place for managing tvOS, iOS, and macOS devices. We deal with these top level areas that we see time and time again within businesses. This involves encryption, so we need to make sure we encrypt devices and we scroll at the firewall keys. Or mobile devices, basically there needs to be a bypass key on that, which is held centrally. No more spreadsheets. We have a fully managed auto-update catalog with over 300 software titles already for your disposal. We have a fully fledged MDM server, again, utilizing the power of Jamf Pro. We have the best of breed MDM server as well. We have advanced provisioning workflows to enable simplification of deploying devices and a true zero-touch workflow. We have a range of administration applications which enable you to have deep control of your Apple estate whilst not having the in-depth knowledge of a complex product like Jamf Pro. And we can empower your end users to utilize self-service and drive that within your organization. So this is an example of a zero-touch workflow. So first and foremost, we power the Mac on out the box. It activates with Apple Business Manager. It pulls down your configuration. The end user chooses their language. You'll see a device configuration is available. We are now authenticating against an LDAP server. That will create a local account on the device that matches that of the LDAP server. The user is prompted for various dialogues. They can choose various options in the setup assistant, but most of those options have been suppressed. The device is now prepared to be set up. And now DataJar's provisioning workflows will now apply to the device. The user is now prompted to name their computer if required by IT. And they can pick which department they currently need to sit in. Now the device is preparing itself for its final setup. It will pull in all the updated software that is required for that particular workflow. You could brand it, you could install Office, whatever needs to happen at this point. And this happens anywhere in the world. The device is now restarted. And you'll see policies have now been applied. The user can now log in and install any additional software they require from self-service. And you'll see that MDM payloads have been applied and we have full enterprise management of this device. We can now log out. The encryption process starts. The user is prompted for their password. A key is generated and submitted to our platform. And that was a very simplified enrollment process. I'd now like to talk about resourcing. This is often an area that is considered but never really thought out very carefully. So when choosing your device management partner and solution, that is one part of the process. What is often neglected is after the initial deployment is the ongoing management, training and resourcing of that infrastructure. Often behind the scenes, no matter how simple Apple technology is for the end user to use, some of the administration tasks require very in-depth knowledge of the operating system and protocols. DataJar have developed 3 simple delivery processes for device management for customers. And these are broken down into 3 areas. Businesses may want to go fully self-managed, in which case we can deploy a management environment for them where they are in complete control themselves. They can design it using their own internal workflows with their own trained workforce and build out an environment ready for them. We can host this environment and provide help along the way, but ultimately they're on their own. And you can have training directly from Jamf for delivering this solution. Our next option is fully managed. This is where our entire managed service, i.e. DataJar.mobi, takes control. We have all the workflows you've just seen fully configured for your environment. We have an application catalog ready and available to you. This service is suited for organizations where perhaps IT resources aren't dedicated, or perhaps macOS or Apple technologies aren't your dedicated platform. And lastly, we have the hybrid. This is aimed at larger enterprise organizations. This is where there's a central dedicated team and perhaps a larger distributed global presence of that organization. We can provide third line escalation services from the central IT team, as well as hosting and managing all infrastructure elements to do with that enrollment and deployment process. Okay, in summary, to cover the points we've talked about today. Ensure you procure Apple devices from Apple or an authorized reseller. Please ensure you leverage Apple Business Manager, as this is the only way to supervise devices. Carefully design your infrastructure to ensure it's not hostile to Apple technology to make sure your Apple deployment is a success. Leverage directory services and integrate them heavily into your deployment workflows for true zero touch. Choose the correct device management partner, as this can often fail you. And lastly, resource, plan. Ensure you either outsource or upskill your internal teams. Further information on our services can be found over at DataJar. I'd like to thank you for your time today. Please reach out to us by emailing hello@datajar.co.uk, where one of our team will be able to deal with your query if you have any questions following on from this webinar. Keep an eye out for future webinars when we're taking deeper dive on DataJar.mobi, application deployment, threat detection, security, identity management, and backup. I'm James Ristow, and I've been your host today. I'd like to thank you, and this concludes our webinar today. Thank you very much.